what I've appreciated over the years when you've shared some very personal experiences, and in part I've appreciated that because, I knew when you shared these that we sat together with such similarities, right? We both have PhDs, we're both marketing professors, we can easily jump into a conversation together, yet you had experiences and have experiences that I knew I would never have simply because of a different race.
But you've had experiences also as a woman that I haven't had. It's hard when you say I understand. Somebody says, well, this happened to me, and you say I understand. Well, do you really understand? Because you haven't experienced that. So when you are treated differently or discriminated against because you're a woman, and I say, well, I understand how you feel because I'm Black. Well, no, those are two very different things. And I can empathize with you, but until I've actually, unless I have been you, it's hard for me to understand you. And because of that, because I can't understand, it's important that I acknowledge that and work to be empathetic toward you, because I can never understand because you have different experiences from me.
This point about not understanding, I have really found myself leaning more so into trying to understand problems, my role in the problems that we have, my role in potential solutions, rather than turn away. I have a dear friend who reminds me that when we don't know what to do, that's the beginning, not the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what are your hope for our students? We've talked about, hoping that they would sit down with a friend that they respected as we respect one another and have these sorts of conversations. How would you suggest, students talk with one another, whether two students who are very similar or two that may be different on different dimensions?
The first thing is to acknowledge that we are different. And that's okay to be different. We have a tendency to think that we would be better if we were all, more similarly aligned in our views and our actions and our deeds. And I don't ascribe to that. So accept the fact that you're different, and you might have this conversation and still end up different, but perhaps closer. So I don't think in a single conversation or even a series of conversations, you're going to close that gap. So if I sit down, let's say two students sit down, one is from a rural area and one's from a urban area. They are different in how they have been socialized, raised, their opinions about things, and come in, dug in, one side or the other on any topic. Well, if you have a conversation and actually listen to the person you're having that conversation with, and listen with an ear towards understanding. Most of the time we listen with the ear towards rebuttal. So whatever you say, I'm already thinking in my mind how I can rebut and respond to it that's more aligned with what my position is. Well, if you take the time and say, well, let me really understand and try and empathize with what they are saying, instead of just dismissing it, that will help close that gap. And I think over time, once you start closing that gap, you see that the differences aren't as stark as we make them out to be. But because of social media and our current political climate and everything else, it makes it seem that we don't have some underlying core that is essentially the same. That we don't all have loved ones in our lives that we care about. We don't all have loved ones in our lives that we don't want to see them with some police officer's knee on their neck. And that's universal. But when I have friends that say, well, if you don't resist arrest, that wouldn't have happened. Or if you hadn't been running away, that wouldn't have happened. Well, even if I do run away, even if I did try and shoplift, I shouldn't die for it. And that's all that we're saying. I don't in any way condone many of the things that I see, but that doesn't mean you should die because of it. And once we accept that fact that, okay, that was, whatever the person did was bad, but they shouldn't die, now we can move closer to where we need to be to recognize the humanity in all of us, even those of us who've made mistakes. And what is frustrating to me is most of the time that I see those things, it's always people who look like me. It's always people who look like my son and my grandson. It's very rare that you'll see a 23-year-old blue-eyed blonde woman on the ground with police on her neck. And that gets you thinking about, well, why is it that way? Why are some people treated differently than others? And we need to talk about why that is and how to fix it, so my great-grandson might not have to experience the same things that previous generations have.